You wake up, check your phone. Coffee costs a little more than last month. Fuel, too. Rent definitely did. No announcement, no new law, no email warning you. And yet, you're paying more for almost everything. Not because companies suddenly got greedier overnight, not because supply chains all broke at once, but because there's a tax being collected from you every single day. One you never voted for, one that never appears on a bill, one that most people don't even realize exists. And the strangest part? You're paying it even when you're doing everything financially responsible. Saving money, avoiding debt, planning for the future. In fact, savers often pay the most. This is the invisible tax. And once you see how it works, it's impossible to unsee. Let's start with something simple. Imagine you worked all year and saved $10,000. You didn't gamble it, didn't invest it, you just held on to it. Now imagine nothing bad happens. You don't lose your job, you don't spend recklessly. You did everything right. But a year later, that same $10,000 buys less. Less food, less energy, less housing, less life. You weren't taxed directly. No government invoice arrived, but your purchasing power shrank anyway. That shrinkage is the invisible tax. Right now, most major economies target around 2% inflation per year. Sounds harmless, tiny even, but inflation compounds. At 2% inflation, your money loses about 18% of its value over 10 years. At 5% inflation, nearly 40% disappears. You still have the same number in your bank account, but the life it can buy gets quietly shaved down, like a bar of soap slowly dissolving under running water. So where does this tax actually come from? Not from a cashier, not from a tax agency. It comes from the money creation system itself. When central banks and governments expand the money supply, new currency enters the economy. This happens through government deficit spending, bank lending, quantitative easing, emergency stimulus programs. New money is created digitally, typed into existence, but the goods and services in the economy don't instantly double to match it. So more money starts chasing the same amount of stuff. Prices rise. Not evenly, not fairly, but persistently. Now here's where it gets interesting. The new money doesn't land everywhere at once. It enters through very specific doors: government contracts, financial markets, large banks, asset purchases. By the time that money reaches everyday wages, prices have already moved higher. So early recipients gain purchasing power. Late recipients lose it. This is called the Cantillon Effect. But you don't need the term to feel the outcome. It's why asset owners get richer during money expansion, while wage earners feel squeezed. Think about the last decade. Stock markets soared, housing prices exploded, luxury assets boomed. Meanwhile, everyday costs crept upward: groceries, healthcare, education, rent. The invisible tax doesn't hit everyone equally. It hits hardest if you hold mostly cash, if you rely on fixed wages, if you don't own appreciating assets. In other words, it hits the financially cautious middle class hardest. Now let's talk about why governments tolerate and often prefer this system. Because inflation quietly solves problems that are politically painful to solve directly. Take government debt. If a country owes trillions of dollars, paying it back honestly requires either higher taxes, spending cuts, or both. Voters hate that. But inflation erodes debt automatically. If the government owes $1 trillion and inflation halves the currency's value over time, the real burden of that debt shrinks. They repay it in cheaper money. Same numbers, less real weight. It's like repaying a loan in watered-down currency. Legally valid, economically convenient. This is why heavily indebted nations rarely pursue zero inflation for long. A little inflation greases the system. Too much breaks it. So policymakers walk a tightrope. They publicly fight inflation while structurally depending on it. There's also a psychological advantage to the invisible tax. If income tax rises 5%, people protest. If prices rise 5%, people complain, but they rarely riot. Because the cause feels abstract, diffused, hard to pin on a single decision. Inflation spreads responsibility so thin it almost disappears. But here's the uncomfortable math most people never calculate. Let's say you save cash for 30 years, no investing, just saving. At 3% average inflation, your money loses over half its purchasing power. Half your life's stored labor, gone. Not stolen overnight, eroded quietly, systematically, legally. Now contrast that with asset owners. When new money enters financial markets, asset prices inflate first. Stocks rise, real estate rises, private equity rises. So while savers lose purchasing power, asset holders gain nominal wealth. This creates the strange modern paradox. Inflation hurts people living on money, but helps people living on assets. It widens inequality without a single tax law changing. And here's where the irony gets sharper. Central banks often raise interest rates to fight inflation. Sounds logical, but higher rates also increase mortgage costs, slow hiring, pressure small businesses, raise government debt servicing costs. So fighting inflation can weaken the real economy, even as it protects currency value. There's no painless lever. Every solution redistributes pain somewhere else. Now zoom out globally. The invisible tax isn't just national, it's international, because the world runs on a handful of reserve currencies. When major economies expand their money supply, that inflation can export outward. Emerging markets often feel it through currency devaluation, imported price shocks, capital flight. They didn't print the money, but they still absorb the consequences. So the invisible tax becomes globalized. And yet most people still think of inflation as random, as if prices just go up sometimes. They don't see the pipeline behind it. Money creation to asset inflation, to consumer inflation, to wage lag. A sequence, a transfer mechanism, not chaos. Now, to be clear, some inflation is considered necessary. Without it, economies can stall. Deflation, falling prices, can freeze spending and investment. So the goal isn't zero inflation. The goal is controlled erosion, predictable currency decay. Which sounds strange when you say it out loud, but that's the design. So who actually collects the invisible tax? Not a single villain. It's distributed. Governments benefit through debt erosion. Asset owners benefit through price inflation. Financial institutions benefit through early money access. Meanwhile, cash savers subsidize the system silently. They fund the erosion simply by holding currency. And here's the final twist. You can't fully opt out. Even if you invest, you're still operating inside the same monetary system, trying to outrun inflation, not escape it, running on a treadmill that keeps accelerating. So the next time prices rise, it's worth asking a different question. Not just why is this more expensive, but where did the new money enter first? Who spent it before prices adjusted? And whose purchasing power absorbed the cost? Because the invisible tax doesn't arrive in envelopes. It arrives in smaller grocery bags, higher rents, delayed life plans. Collected slowly, quietly, systematically. And the real unanswered question isn't whether it exists, it's this. If modern economies depend on currency losing value every year, what happens if one day it loses value faster than the system can control?